Please be aware, in this podcast series we talk about all areas of safeguarding, which some people may find upsetting. So please make sure you're okay listening to today's topic. Be mindful of those around you, such as children, that you might not want to listen in. Hi, I'm SSS Safeguarding Director Sam Preston.
And I'm former head teacher and content author Sarah Spinks.
Welcome to today's episode where we discuss key issues affecting safeguarding in education. Today we're discussing the misalignment between keeping children safe in education, KCSIE, and achieving best evidence in criminal proceedings, ABE. So let's start with the basics. Schools follow KCSIE, which is the statutory guidance for safeguarding, but the police and courts use Achieving Best Evidence, ABE, which has a different set of standards. So, Sarah, I think it would be useful to break down, first of all, why this creates a problem.
Absolutely. Well, KCSIE, put my teeth in, tells school staff to listen carefully when a child discloses abuse and then write up a summary afterwards. So this approach ensures that staff are fully present with the child, giving them their undivided attention. However, ABE, which guides police and social workers, requires a verbatim record of what the child says, often through video or detailed written notes. So this creates a real challenge because teachers follow KCSIE guidance in good faith, but in legal proceedings, their records are often criticised for lacking forensic accuracy.
And we saw this play out in court recently, didn't we?
Yeah, in 2023, a judge ruled that a child's disclosure was muddied because teachers' records didn't provide a clear verbatim account. Even though the school had followed KCSIE guidance, the judge found that their notes were vague and inconsistent, and this resulted in the course dismissing the allegations due to lack of forensic care in how the school recorded the evidence.
And that's incredibly worrying, isn't it? I mean, if the child was telling the truth, then justice wasn't served, partly just because of how evidence was recorded. So let's talk about the impact on educators. Schools are expected to protect children, but if their safeguarding records aren't seen as credible in court, how does that affect them?
Well, it puts schools in an impossible position, really. On one hand, teachers must follow KCSIE guidance, but on the other, if their records don't meet ABE standards, they could be accused of failing to safeguard the child properly. Plus, DSLs, designated safeguarding leads, often don't receive training in forensic evidence collection. They aren't police officers or social workers, yet their records are judged by the same legal standards.
And that must create anxiety for educators. You know, they're doing their best, but if their notes are later questioned in court, it could feel like they've let the child down, even when they haven't.
Exactly. And it also means that in some cases, it might not even reach trial because the initial records don't meet evidentiary standards. And I think that's a really huge issue.
Yeah, it really is. Another point raised in this whole discussion is the importance of precise language in safeguarding records. So how can small wording differences affect a case?
Well, small differences can make a huge impact. For example, if a child refers to someone as daddy, but the teacher writes father in their report, it can create confusion, especially if there are multiple male figures, in a child's life.
Yeah.
Similarly, whether a child says they were touched on or in a body part can completely change how an allegation is interpreted in court. These details matter, but teachers are not always trained to recognise these significance and differences.
Yeah, that's really, really important. I mean, it really highlights how crucial accurate record keeping is. A well-intended change in wording could alter how the case is viewed entirely. So what can be done to fix this safeguarding disconnect? Are there any proposed solutions?
Well, there are a few ideas being discussed. One is incorporating ABE principles into KCSIE. So schools could be trained to include some forensic elements in their safeguarding records without overburdening teachers. Another one is mandatory DSL qualifications. So there's talk about maybe the possibility of a national qualification for DSLs. And that could ensure consistent high quality training that includes the ABE principles. Using external investigators, schools could work with trained professionals like ex-police officers or social workers to help capture disclosures to ABE standards. Clearer and more accessible guidance. So schools need that practical, easy to follow advice on how to make their records legally robust whilst keeping the child's needs central.
It all sounds really promising, Sarah, but, I imagine there's barriers. I mean, we'll come on to them in a little minute, because I'm just very conscious of the setting in which schools operate and settings in which the police and social care operate, because the police and social care settings, they're very controlled, aren't they? If they're going to do an interview with a family, they're going to interview the child, it's very, very controlled. Whereas what might be disclosed or discussed in a school setting, a lot of the time that's not formal, So I think there's something very problematic about kind of aligning the two here. But other barriers I'm thinking about are, as ever, funding and training availability.
Exactly. Schools are already stretched thin. Introducing forensic training or hiring external investigators, that requires resources, lots of it. But without changes, we do risk more cases failing in court because of these evidentiary issues.
So this conversation has really highlighted the urgent need for change, hasn't it? So, some schools, I've never met a school that doesn't, want to protect children. But the current system, there is that possibility of setting them up for failure, isn't it?
Absolutely. We do need alignment between KCSIE and ABE to ensure teachers can effectively safeguard children, while also providing records that hold up in court. That way, we don't risk justice being lost due to technicalities.
Yeah, and it is technicalities, isn't it? Well, this has been a really important discussion. I think it is something no doubt we will be coming back to. I hope we see real progress in safeguarding record keeping. I think there's a lot of work to be done on this. I hope listeners have found this episode valuable. As I always say, please share it with colleagues and educated. Let's get the conversation going. As ever, stay safe, stay informed. We'll certainly keep you updated as new developments occur, and I've absolutely no doubt we'll be talking about this again.